What is going on, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at the Incredible Hulk by Peter David Omnibus Volume 3. So, please stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market on May 26th, and then a couple of weeks later in the book market. And speaking of direct market, what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. To your left is the standard edition cover. Again, the direct market cover is only available at places like your local comic book store, cheapgraphicnovels.com, Tales of Wonder, In-Stock Trades, DCBS, while the standard edition is available everywhere, including Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Now, let's take a look at this direct market cover. Here is the image by Gary Frank, who becomes the ongoing artist on The Incredible Hulk. And the spine. My favorite thing about this spine, oh man, is having Maestro down there. Awesome. The George Perez image. And here are all the covers of the books collected in this edition. The book retails for $125. So, before I go any further, I know it's one of my favorite things to look at, but it's all the spines and how they will look together on the bookshelf. And of course, we're getting a volume 4 later on. And don't forget, a reprint of volume 1 at the beginning of next year, and a new stock or new printing of this particular volume 2, in case you missed it, in, I believe it's September. But here's what they all look like together. Beautiful. So let's take a closer look at this without the dust jacket. You have an image there of Hulk from George Perez from the Future Imperfect storyline. The spine with no image. And then, speaking of Future Imperfect, Uncanny Omar talked pretty one day, Maestro from Future Imperfect, with beautiful artwork by George Perez. So let's get this book open, talk a little bit about it, and then look at the build. Let's get this massive book open. Here are the bookend pages, that sky blue from before, Hulk by Peter David. Love seeing that, love seeing the fact that we're going to get a volume 4. Here's what all the credits are. Peter David, of course, leading the forefront here, and then you have other writers, and of course, actually I forgot, Jan Drusina does start off, she's the artist at the very beginning, and then Gary Frank, Paul Pelletier, who ends up taking over Hulk many years later. Here is the table of contents where you can find each of these books. So kicking it off with Hulk 401. So this book contains Hulk, The Incredible Hulk, issues 401 to 435, annual numbers 19 and 20, Incredible Hulk vs. Venom number 1, Future Imperfect numbers 1 and 2, Tales to Astonish, so glad they collected that in here, number 1, Incredible Hulk Ashcan edition number 1, and then material from Marvel Holiday Special. So as I was mentioning earlier, we have Jan Dursima's artwork towards the very beginning, and eventually we'll get Gary Frank. I think Jan Dursima ends up going to X Factor, and then Gary Frank comes and takes over the book. Of course, Gary Frank and Peter David ended up working later on one of my favorite runs of Supergirl, and that is Supergirl, the Linda Danvers years. But here we are. This is when Gary Frank took over the book in this issue right here. And one of the things you may notice is the inks by Cam Smith. Yes, right here, which is the cover to the direct market omnibus here. This is when Gary Frank took over the book, and the inks by Cam Smith make it look a little bit like Del Keown, who was drawing the book before Gary Frank took over the book. And what's interesting about them, at least during this time of Gary Frank's artwork, is that not only does he look like Del Keown, but Del Keown also looked like they both were harnessing their best John Byrne. And that's what their artwork reminds me of. Here's the fight with the Juggernaut. We not only have the Hulk duking it out with the Juggernaut, but we also have him fighting the Avengers. We have this whole backup story going on through these pages with Rick Jones and trying to figure out how to heal Marlove, which was his fiance, from something horrible that happened to her. And yes, we have the whole relationship between Bruce and Betty. And here he is duking it out with the Avengers. And we have the return of the Pantheon here, which are kind of his own team that he had for a while. And I want to say during this run, I think they were really pushing for a Pantheon ongoing series or a mini series. We have Doc Sampson, and Doc plays a bigger role in Hulk. And not only just as his therapist, sometimes enemy, sometimes friend. What is that, a friend to me? Oh, this is from the annual, and I want to say this is Kirk Jarvin on artwork here. Let's see, Peter David and Kirk Jarvinen. That was his name. Not the mama, not the mama. Yeah, that's a take on the Dinosaurs TV show that was popular at the time. It's one of my favorite things about Peter David is he was so into pop culture. Whatever was hot at the time, he was getting into piecemeal. There are some really touching and beautiful stories in here, and I'll get to that without spoiling anything in a minute. But I remember reading this, and this is the appearance, guest starring Motormouth and Kill Power, which are two characters from the Marvel UK, and I remember reading this as a kid, and I'm like, who the heck are these characters I don't know anything about? Now, Gary Frank doesn't stay on the book for more than, I think, 2 years. We'll get another artist here in a little while. But we do have a big wedding coming up, and the wedding actually features some of my favorite moments. That's another favorite thing of mine about Peter David's run is how funny it was. Like, genuinely, like, laughing. There's some things in comics that you read that make you snicker, but to me, like, Peter David's Hulk always made me laugh, just as much as his X Factor. And this right here, if I'm not mistaken, is Paul Pelletier. It kind of looks like him. And let's see here. Yep, it's a guest penciler, Paul Pelletier. And Paul Pelletier became the ongoing artist during Greg Pak's run. So it was almost like he was destined to become the Hulk artist one day. And sure enough, here he is drawing Hulk. He did a couple of backup stories before this, but this is his first full issue. There is a funny, which we'll get to here in a minute, bachelorette party and a bachelor party. Because there's Rick is getting married. Here is the Venom one-shot. Also found in the Venom Omnibus. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be the big Trojan War storyline, the beginning of it. Let's see. Yeah, right here. The big Trojan War, which is 4 parts where one of the characters, what is her name? Atlanta, gets kidnapped by these aliens who want to escort her or marry her. And it almost feels like a small little Defenders reunion, because we have the Silver Surfer show up, we have Doctor Strange show up, and all of this, I've forgotten how much Gary Frank's artwork had changed. Because his art style later on, it's not the same. By the time he's doing things like Superman with Jeff Johns, his art style is a lot different. He has a lot more cross-hatching going on. It's not as well-rounded, if you will. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I really like his art style here. Mainly because I was used to the art styles of people like John Byrne or Dale Keown, who are 2 of my favorite artists. Now, what I was going to say is, while there is a big storyline with this Trojan War going on up in space, here on Earth, there seems to be some kind of hinting at something big that's about to happen. And honestly, they've been hinting at it small dosages throughout the book, dropping the hints here and there for a while, like for over 2 years. And that is the event known as Future Imperfect, which is the next thing that we're going to be talking about. And I don't want to spoil the ending of that particular storyline, but it all kicks off here with this one shot. And this is written by Peter David. Tom Smith is the colorist, but God bless, look at that. This is George Perez. I think, to me, this is the best thing he ever did. I'm a huge fan of his New Teen Titans and his Wonder Woman run. Loved his JLA Avengers. But to me, I think this is the best thing. And it probably has to do with the colors. I'm so glad they never updated the colors. I love this feel that it gives me about this possible future where you have this... we have this new villain known as Maestro, and you can find out for yourself if you've never read it why some people consider this to be the best Hulk story ever. It's awesome, and especially if you're reading it for the first time, how well the setups work. Because one of the things about Peter David that I loved about him was the fact that he's kind of like Chris Claremont here. I'm just going to jump, show you a couple pages. He's kind of like Chris Claremont in the sense that he likes to play the long game. He starts putting hints around for about a year or 2 about possible storylines, which kind of breaks my heart later on with his X Factor run, or for that matter, his Hulk run. But we don't have to talk about that yet. This is Roger Cruz, I believe, harnessing his Jim Lee art style before he developed his own Joe Mad style. And there's a really powerful issue in here, and then I promise we'll look at the extras in the back. But here's the Tales to Astonish one-shot. This is drawn by, or painted by, John Estes. But the main story I wanted to talk about is the Jim Wilson storyline. So Jim was a friend of not just Hulk, but Rick Jones, and he is attacked, and pretty much he's dying of AIDS. And it's a really sad story because Jim is begging Bruce to give him a blood transfusion, knowing that the gamma ray blood in Bruce is going to cure his AIDS. This is a really powerful issue. Bruce's decision is a tough one to make, and I'm not sure if this one won any kind of awards, but it sure as hell should have at the time. This one, I remember as I was in high school when this one came out, and it moved me, because not just this story, but there's something that happens at the end of this story. It's quite shocking. It's one of the best Hulk stories, standalone Hulk stories of all time. It's beautifully crafted, and damn, Peter David, this will make you believe that Peter David can not just only write funny stories, but also some damn punch you in the gut kind of stories. So let's get a little further here. One of the things that I noticed when reading this, or rereading this in trade paperback format, was the color changes. So Glynis Oliver was the colorist for a while on the book, and you can kind of tell the colors that he was using back here in just a few issues before the change here. So it looks like they were going more towards the color separation colors, and now we have Liam Sharp join with this anniversary issue. He draws half of it, and then Gary Frank draws the first half, and it's issue 425. I really remember this cover because I couldn't find this version with the hologram. I think I had to settle for the regular version, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was another one, but I could have sworn it was this one. I remember not being able to find this hologram cover. But as I was saying, Gary Frank exits the book in this, and then for the other half is the new penciler, and that is Liam Sharp. And his pencils were familiar to me because I was such a fan of Death's Head 2. So I knew that he could draw big guys. So we have Man-Thing show up here. This is the way he drew Hulk. Almost like a super muscular, super sexy Bruce Banner. And this is what the artwork looks like. We have some returning villains from not just Peter David's run, but just from the classic Rogue Gallery that Hulk has acquired over the years. And then we have, I think it's the issue before this one, 432. Yeah, so 432 is the ending of the Hulk era, where Hulk is just kind of standalone-ish. And then he joins the Edge era. So Marvel Edge was kind of like Marvel grouping their books together. There were the X titles, there were the Spider titles, and then there were the Edge titles, which were like Punisher, Daredevil, Ghost Rider. And one of the things that happened was the Over the Edge crossover, which is, well, you can find out for yourself what happens, but it has something to do with Nick Fury. And it looks like Terry Dodson does the artwork for this particular issue. Here's a funeral, and you can read for yourself whose funeral it is. But during this time, it's these type of colors that they were experimenting with. Now we get to the extras. So here's the extras to the wedding special, a quick synopsis of the Hulk and his whole history, and Rick Jones' history, and how they are so heavily tied together. I didn't even talk about the bachelor party or the bachelorette party. You can find out for yourself. And let's see here. Interviews. And I'm going to skip a few so you can be surprised. Way, hey now, Betty. All right, looks like we got some swimsuit stuff. We got enough material for an omnibus. I want to say that's Dan Panosian, Carlos Pacheco, Jander Sema. Then we have some covers to Wizard magazines and Advance Comics, and then some covers to other trade paperbacks editions, and that is beautiful. That's from Future Imperfect, the Marvel Tales trade paperback, I assume. Let's talk about this binding. So this book has 1,200 pages. Here's what the eye looks like, and this one is printed at the R. Donnelly printer. It's laying over really nice. Paper quality is nice and thick. Really like the previous two Omnis. And I didn't have any issues reading this. I only read the first fourth of it because I had to jump onto Man-Thing because I have to do that overview. So that keep an eye on the channel. It'll probably come out on Monday. Man-Thing Monday. We'll make that happen. Showcasing some more of this artwork and how the book lays over. Actually, you probably want to see how it lays over at the very front. And then, of course, towards the end of the book, how it lays over. Like I said, I've only read a third, and fourth, but other than that, I've also properly opened and stretched the spine like I've shown in my videos in the past. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online source for collected editions up to 50% off retail price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on excellent packaging, so your stuff gets to you in excellent condition, and they have amazing customer service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And for all you Minties that are watching, if you're a first-time customer, don't forget to mention that Near Mint Condition sent you their way for a promotional credit on free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for US customers. cheapgraphicnovels.com, your source for the hottest books with deep discounts, customer service, and excellent shipping that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and the build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you're going to pick it up. Please keep in mind that we are getting a reprint of Volume 1 next year and a restock of Volume 2 later on this year. And I just announced the Volume 4 coming out next March. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. More importantly, everyone, please stay healthy, stay safe, and much love to all of you.